Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of MTG Study Hall. I, as always, am your host, Brett, and I am joined by my stalwart co-hosts,
JC
and
Dave.
And before we launch into the show, we have a little bit of bookkeeping to take care of. Dave, you want to start off?
Yeah, you can support us by checking us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Patreon at /TCGU University. And we've got our monthly exclusive for those that are on the Patreon, the Class of 2020 shirt, which will be changing at the end of the month to something that we'll tell you about then. But yeah, go ahead and sign up for Patreon if you want access to that exclusive shirt. We're also available on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify. So if you use one of those for your podcasts, go ahead and pick that up. And of course, you can always see us live by being a Patreon subscriber. There's subscribers for Patreon? Is that how that works? Probably.
Patrons? I don't know. $1.
Patron. Yeah, you could be a patron. Oh, you're blowing my mind, Brett. For $1, and you can watch us live every week when we do this.
And the pre and post show, which is weird.
Yeah, we just talk about weird shit.
All sorts of stuff. Yeah,
Very
check it out.
And we'd like to thank our Patreon sponsors. Speaking of Patreon, all these people who support our wonderful channel, we very, very much appreciate it. So we got Clay Cardwell, Jay Rogers, Jarrett Hubbard, Jerome Weeks Jr., Justin Farst, Kat Maria, Kevin Broberg, Lucinda Letica, Samantha Stevens, Theodore Ruiz, Tyler Zane Pease. If you would like your name read right here with all the love and support we give, $5 on Patreon, you can get on this list.
We really appreciate it. Thank you. So before we launch into our topics today, we're going to talk about what we did in and outside of Magic this past week. I really should try to remember who went first last time. JC, you're up.
Cool. Outside of Magic, I tried to get over terrible January sickness. I just had a cold that was absolutely wrecking me. You heard a little bit about that on the last podcast there. Past that, just dealing with work, post-holidays, just trying to keep on. Nebraska's really cold and awful right now, so it's hard to go do things that involve being outside.
We, quite the shake-up from above freezing weather to single digits in, like, the last 3 days or so.
And an ice storm tonight.
Hooray!
I've been playing
right in time for the pre-release.
Playing a little bit more of Final Fantasy XIV online because it is so very good. And inside of Magic, just a lot of pre-release research, honestly. I'm watching some videos, looking at the art, looking at the cards as they come out, that kind of thing. So that's been that.
Okay. Dave?
Outside of Magic, yeah, just still on the Pokemon train. Still playing some Shield and some Sword, and
I think I burned myself out bad, like looking for shinies, and now I'm like, I don't know if I want to play this.
Yeah, I still have to play through. So I set up Sword in Japanese so that I can do the Ditto thing, but I like
The
still kind of
method.
Yeah, I'm I'll play for like 20-30 minutes and not actually progress that far because something else will go, shit, I need to take care of this or that, or I'm gonna go cook something to eat, or but that's kind of. Yeah, it's slow going once I have some Dittos, though. I'll probably use you as a fence for my Dittos to send them to my primary account and, get you some Splash Dittos on the way. When I finally get to the point where I can catch Dittos. I'm going to say Dittos again. Dittos.
They're actually endgame. They're on the last island.
Yeah, you need surf.
Yeah.
The bike.
Or bike. You
Yeah,
need bike surf.
The bike with the paddling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Back in my day.
You need the bike, and you need to be at reasonable level.
And for those of you that haven't played the new Pokemon game, they're keeping with the tradition of HMs are stupid and don't add anything, so let's just have it as a special ability that the trainer learns and not a Pokemon.
One of the best decisions
so you
they
don't
ever
have to
made.
have an HM slave.
Yep.
Which, I mean, it's kind of cool to have the HM slave in, like, the older games. More as just like, oh, shit, so we know we need to do this in the speed. Like, that's kind of a thing. But,
yeah.
Yeah, and then Magic, we're just waiting for Theros. Which something that dawned on me that you guys pointed out isn't actually the case. I was expecting the code for Theros Beyond Death to be TBD.
Which it ought to be.
It should be. That would have been so much fun.
People kept making jokes and were getting confused, so it's THB.
Which is sad because they could have just used that as like the design name like years ago. Like, what's this set? Well, it's TBD.
I just can't believe the missed opportunity of Theros Beyond Death coming back to life on this date.
It's a shame.
Yeah,
Wizards hates
it's
fun.
a shame.
Yeah. So as we're recording this, the pre-releases are available on Arena now. So once we're done here, I think I'm planning on trying to hop in a few queues and try and do some of the sealed, maybe draft. I haven't checked exactly what they have, but we know the
Practice up and
Should just be sealed right now. Maybe
sealed?
the
Okay.
full draft, but I'm not sure.
I
Definitely sealed.
Yeah, if I'm going to be getting something on Arena, I don't really want to do like best 2 out of 3 drafts with how that's set up, because that just.
No.
I mean, I'm going to want to try and draft something gimmicky, and gimmicky decks generally don't do well in game 2. So
Yeah.
Fair enough.
they're pretty good in game 1, but you know.
Yeah, no, I love the best of 1 drafting is a lot of fun. But that we're going to kind of get into that to a degree later on in the show. Quickly, outside of Magic, I beat Death Stranding. I'd been like a crazy person on that game. Like I felt like I was in high school again. Like it was
Yeah.
literally like Cad'd be like, "Food's ready, dinner's done." I'm like, "Okay, great, I'll come out and grab that in a second," and then forget. And then just make it half an hour later, it's like I'm like building a zipline network, and it's like, oh, there's food. I need to like maintain body function. So beat that game. Super great. I won't go on and on about it right now, but I could. Although warning, if you say, yeah, I'm going to beat this game and the credits start rolling, there's like an hour and a half more.
Oh, it's
So,
like
at-
like Lord of the Rings.
At like 11:30,
It's standard Kojima. It's
Yeah.
just how that goes.
11:45 at night, the credits are rolling. Now I know there's a little more coming, so it's like, oh, this is great. Hour and a half minimum more before the game was done. And yeah, I went to bed at like 2 in the morning that night. So that was a bad choice, but a great game. I can't recommend it highly enough. In Magic, trying out some new format for Brawling with Brett. I recorded that yesterday. I'm excited to get that up. We're going to get 3 videos kind of spaced out over the week. And yeah, not a ton to do in Magic right now. We're in that really kind of awkward phase where I just want to play with Theros cards. So I've been thinking a lot about it and super excited to go home and try some Theros out. So we're going to launch into it now, and we're going to open up with last week we talked about the best way to buy cards, which I think is a common one. There's a lot of like the only buy singles, and we kind of discussed that and broke it down a little bit.
Sure did.
And so on a similar note, there's a topic that I see pop up in a lot of places, particularly on Reddit. That's where I get a lot of my Magic news, and it's the idea that Magic the Gathering is pay to win. And so when I pitched the topic, it was, is Magic pay to win? And my immediate answer to that is absolutely not. But I'm curious if you two agree with that. Do you think Magic is pay to win, Jason?
Is vintage pay to win?
So here's what I would say as far as that goes. I don't think that it's pay to win. Not even with vintage, even though there's obviously that barrier to entry.
Mm-hmm.
Like I would say that you have to pay to compete.
And that's the phrase I was going to bring up.
If you're going into a vintage tournament and you're not playing power, or you're not playing a way to go faster than power,
Yeah,
don't play
dredge.
vintage.
Yeah,
Just don't play it. That's because look at it like this, right? You wouldn't play a pickup game of basketball wearing a suit. You would be wearing athletic clothes.
Sure, but
Like-
the common criticism of pay to win in like video games, for instance, is never like you're actually winning the game. It's no, you're paying to be among the elite. You're paying to compete at the top level.
Okay.
So is it a similar complaint in that regard, that if you are going to play at the top level, is pay like that barrier?
I think there's certainly a barrier. And so Dave said pay to compete, and that is what I always respond to if someone says Magic's pay to win. I say no, Magic's pay to compete.
Yeah.
So if you want to play Legacy or Vintage, there are some cheaper. Well, there's some at the very least. There's some cheaper Legacy decks. Maybe there's
Yeah,
a
there
more
is.
budget Vintage deck. I wouldn't know. I don't pay any attention to Vintage. But for Modern, there's decks you can compete fairly well in Modern for sub $100.
Especially because you don't have to buy that Oko.
Yeah, because Oko's gone. Thank God.
Sorry.
No, it's good. If you want to hear us complain about Oko, kind of, and then go off on a tangent, pre-show, check it out. Patreon, $1.
Indeed.
But you can. Yeah, I don't think you can say you can fairly compete at Magic if you aren't going to have the money to
That's
pay
fair.
into the format. But
fair.
it's. Oh, go ahead.
No, that's fair.
Something I kind of thought this is a topic that's been rattling around my head that I wanted to talk about. Like, hobbies cost money. If you want to go snowboarding, you need to pay money. Now, you could go to the hills and you could rent a snowboard.
That is a much better way to explain what point I was going for. Like you need certain equipment in order to do a lot of these hobbies.
Yeah, like fish.
Like
I mean,
Magic is no different.
fishing, rock climbing. You could go to a certain place and rent something. There are cheaper options. But if you are like in a hobby, if you're like,
for the record, I agree with you. I'm just playing a little bit of devil's advocate here.
I think that's
In-
good.
That's
in-
fair. If we immediately go, no, it's not. That's ridiculous, and then move on to the next point.
In snowboarding, you don't have to go buy the best snowboard equipment to get good at snowboarding. Like, you can get there on fairly not the greatest snowboard equipment. I don't know if you can get to kind of the top level in Magic without buying some of the best.
If there is a de facto best deck, if it's a tier 0 format, then yeah, you absolutely need the best deck. If it isn't a tier 0 format and there are strategies that could still be competitive
Off the wall,
that aren't
competitive, red deck wins, kind of
like
things,
mono red is normally a thing. Like if you look at like the top 8 of most GPs, normally you're going to see a lot of diversity as far as the deck goes.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you might see, well, there are 2 copies of this deck and 4 copies of this deck and 2 copies of or like 1 or 2 other fringe decks.
Yeah.
When you look at the rest of the meta, you're going to notice, well, okay, well, this is like 35% of the field. This is 20, et cetera, et cetera. Just like the breakdown, there's normally going to be some diversity. It's not necessarily going to be the case where the best deck is known and everyone's playing it. Every now and again that does happen. Like when you look at the top 8 from Austin, Oko was a 4 of in every deck aside from 1, I believe.
Yeah, sure was.
And that's one of those.
And it's not like Oko was cheap.
Yeah, that's kind of one of those points where you're getting kind of close to
so
that.
So it's kind of like almost the question is Magic sometimes pay to win?
Until they ban the problematic card.
I mean, and again, maybe I'm being semantic, but I always feel it feels more like pay to compete because like learning Magic is tricky. So like if you my kind of thought on this.
And once again, I just want to state for the record, I agree. I'm
I'm glad you're taking the stance because I don't want to be, if we have newer people watching, I don't want it to be, and I think that is particularly a complaint from newer players. You come into the game, you're treating it particularly
because it does have a sticker shock.
Yeah, no, and like maybe you come from other, like you like Ticket to Ride, you like board games, you like Settlers of Catan, so you go, I spent $60 on a game, and then you go to Everyone Loves Magic, I'll take those 2 Planeswalker decks, or take these 2,
or especially if you come from other card games, if you're playing like Final Fantasy or something like that.
Where Final Fantasy kind of has a secondary market, doesn't it?
It's starting
something along those lines.
Yeah, for sure.
Like I own exactly 1 Final Fantasy card, thanks to my brother-in-law. Thanks, Bert.
If you want to know more, check out our other podcasts. Anyway,
I mean, I'd assume so. Like there. I don't know, Final Fantasy. That's kind of a different topic altogether.
It is a different topic altogether.
Final Fantasy, everyone has a favorite Final Fantasy character, and you might be inclined to go, "Oh, cool, a foil Terra. I want that."
Yeah.
Do you play that game? No, but Terra's cool.
Yeah.
So,
But I think it's fair to say that, depending if you coming from video games or something else, I think there's absolutely a sticker shock, or even MTG Arena, where every rare mythic is the same cost to you, and so you come in and you say, I want to get four, not Okos anymore, but let's say 4 Murderous Riders, I have those in my deck, and you go, I have 4 gold wild cards on Arena, and now all of a sudden this card's at least $10. That's $40. That is a used game.
that is 4 cards.
Yeah,
In your deck.
in your 75.
Yeah.
And that's 1 deck. So it's, and particularly if you like deck building, that might seem like a huge shock.
Yeah.
And it's one of those tricky things where there are cheap ways to play Magic. You can play with your friends. You can play Commander. You can play Pauper. Now there are some
Aura
pricey
stuff.
Pauper cards. You can proxy stuff out. But I think it's the...
If your friends or whoever you're playing with allow.
Yeah,
is
so
cool with it.
there's options, but it's like I mean, I like the snowboard metaphor. So if we come back to that, there are cheaper ways to do it, and you could buy cheaper equipment and kind of make it work. Maybe you don't have...
I think bowling is like a good metaphor. Like,
yeah, I mean, bowling works too. I
Yeah.
mean, gloves, balls, stuff like that. But if you say, I'm going to enter a bowling tournament now,
right.
that's going to be a little different. And so, like, if maybe you're like, so F&M is a place where you don't necessarily have to bring the best tier list. Now, you might end up playing against a lot of those tier 1 decks that are more expensive than you. And I think that's where a lot of new players come from, where that happens. And then it's like, oh, well, I didn't want to spend the money on this expensive deck. That's why I'm not winning. And that can be part of it. But if you're going to go into a tournament, particularly as you kind of increase in skill and scale of the tournament, you do need to pay to compete. And so you need to look... You either need to be a hell of a brewer, and even if you're a hell of a brewer, the cards you're brewing with are still going to cost money, or you're going to need to get a deck that somebody else has made. And so that's kind of if you're entering this bowling tournament, if you're entering a snowboarding tournament, you need to start shaving off those percentage points. And to do that in any sport, I think it's reasonable. You need to start getting better gear. If you're into fishing and you're going to go into a bass fishing tournament, the guy who's got a better reel than you has increased his odds of winning.
Right.
And so there's a point where you need to...
like fishing and bowling and snowboarding, you what we're saying is that can get there. You get to a competitive level by paying some money, but you actually have to be good at playing Magic to actually win.
Exactly. And something that I think comes up a lot, and I've heard pay to win in video games a lot of times, where like on a mobile game, you could say, I'm going to pay to buy levels.
Right.
I'm literally going to
twist that knife.
Yeah,
Just,
so you buy this like 4-star whatever character in those collect 'em all games. It's just got massive stats, and then you start winning raids. And
exactly.
Blah, blah, blah,
and when I hear pay to win, that's what I think of. And so for Magic, I could say, so let's say we have somebody who's been playing. I don't want to pick on new players. I think I think there's a totally understandable frustration with the cost, and sometimes it's hard to understand. It's why am I losing? Maybe it is card accessibility. Now it might be other things, but I think that's a big part of it. I don't want to say like, oh, because you only have $50 a month to spend, you might not be able to compete, and it's a frustrating place to be. But
yeah, because you don't even have to be a new player. You just have to be like, I don't have disposable income to stay current.
And if your friends play Modern, that kind of sucks. If the only Magic happening around you is expensive, it's not doesn't feel good. But this the scenario to consider is, let's say you could have any card in Magic the Gathering available to you, and you got to go to a pro tour, and you've been playing for 6 months. You aren't going to win.
True.
It's technically possible. The odds could fall in your favor. Maybe you're a prodigy. Maybe you're just a really good player and you picked it up quickly. But you probably aren't going to win. Pros.
Maybe I net decked it and read the article on how to play this deck.
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, it's you don't know how to sideboard. You don't know what the metagame looks like. Like another thing to keep in mind is pros win rates. What are they? 55, 60%?
I think if you have a 60% win rate, then you're probably the best player ever.
Yeah, so
I think like even like PV and LSV have like slightly above 50, maybe slightly below 50.
Yeah.
Like that's, kind of about that, because you're going to, generally the idea is you're going to lose a lot more than you're going to win, especially if you're getting better. Because if you're playing against the same people that you continually beat without any effort, really, you're never going to get any better doing that.
Yeah.
You just won't. They're just going to keep falling for the same tricks. You're going to continue to win, and then when someone that plays way better than those guys play against you, then you just lose. So...
No, and it's another thing to keep in mind is don't judge too much off one game. So another fun thing, it's like, okay, I think somebody asked Morrow on Blogatog the same thing, and his retort, it was a similar one, and his retort was, pick any deck in a format and play a pro 7 times with it. And so the more you play this out, the more you're going to kind of average this all out. So you might have a few good games where you go in with your new deck, and it's like, yeah, I'm paying to win. I got the best deck, now I'm going to win no matter what. And maybe, I mean, it also, an important thing to keep in mind is I think we kind of default to F&M, organized play, people who know what they're doing. A reality is, let's say you're in middle school and you get $10 a month, or you don't get an allowance, and you don't have a job because you can't have a job because you're too young. In that kind of metagame, the kid who can show up with the really pricey cards, if they're playing Jace the Mind Sculptors and Brainstorms, and you're slamming uncommons from a deck builder's toolkit, you can kind of pay to win.
Your glimmer of possibility isn't going to be good enough.
Yeah, so it's one of those, like, I see that, I get riled, I see that on Reddit, and I'm like, it's not pay to win, you're wrong, you just don't understand. And I'm glad you were playing devil's advocate, JC.
Because it's kind of a situation of, I feel like my answer usually is like, it's pay to compete, except in the rare cases when it's pay to win.
You've got some other parts to look at it too, where this game also has like the special printings of things, the expensive printings. Let me play out a line from my very first Legacy tournament a long time ago. My opponent won the die roll. He went first. Opened with a simplified Chinese foil Polluted Delta from Odyssey.
Jeez.
Sorry, from Onslaught. Crack, get a Mint Beta Underground Sea. Tap, foil Japanese Loro and Thoughtseize You. All right, cool. My turn 1. Scalding Tarn, which was about $10 at the time because Rise of the Eldrazi had just come out, so it was still pretty low cost. Crack that for the revised Underground Sea that I was borrowing into my M10 Duress You. Get your ad nauseum out of here. Foil Japanese ad nauseum, of course. So
of course.
His first play was a semester in college. Now, and my first play was a textbook. Like,
I mean that's fair. Yeah, no, I.
But the nice thing is, now Legacy, it's a little murky, and even modern cards. Some of the, I mean, any Scalding Tarn now is going to be $100 unless it's super beat up. Yeah. But there are these. I like that Wizards gives us these crazy, cool options. I love the alternate rare versions because as long as you are playing with one of the legal cards, it doesn't matter if you're playing the cheapest version of Duress. It's still your Theros printing Thoughtseize does as much as a specialty printing Thoughtseize.
Yeah, sure does.
So it's just something you need that I recommend if you're coming into Magic. You need to figure out your price point, and you need to figure out where you're playing, and then you need to budget, and you need to accept that if you get $20 a month to spend on Magic, you probably shouldn't try to play Modern. No, I'm not saying there's not a deck there, but you're going to be fighting an uphill battle.
It's definitely going to be. You have pros and cons, like getting into Eternal formats. The old logic that we used for Legacy was you only have to spend the money once and then minimal upkeep. It's like playing like a miniatures game like Warhammer, where getting into Warhammer is expensive, but once you've made that initial investment, there's much less that you inevitably need to pick up. Like every now and again, you might have a new codex or new figs, and Magic.
Or they might take all Space Marines and make a new, cooler, better Space Marine called Primaris. That's a different model, and then you have 2 separate Space Wolf armies. That could maybe happen hypothetically. I wouldn't know.
It is like you said, though. Even if you had access to every card printed in Magic, you don't necessarily know your deck synergy very well, your combo options very well, how to sideboard very well, how to strategize your blocking priority, what you're flashing in, the timing of different things, and stuff like that. So you're like, even if you have access to the best cards, you're not going to win.
And you don't have 10 years of experience.
Even if you have the exact same deck, if you're playing a mirror match.
And
so you're not going to win.
If you play a mirror match of like Cobblade against Cobblade, the better player ought to win almost every single time. So it doesn't matter if you spent, and that's kind of you get to have this in order to compete in the first place.
Yeah.
Like if we have a tier 0 format, I guess it's kind of pay to win, pay to compete at that point because you're just going to be playing mirrors. I guess there's a lot to do with that.
I think Magic has a high pay to compete value,
depending on the format.
But then again, so does any hobby that you invest a lot of money in. Like,
and I mean, that's the thing. This Magic is not just another game. In many situations is not just another game like a board game you'd buy at the store. You can spend $60, have 2 decks, and have fun with your partner once a week. That's fine, but it's a hobby. Magic is a hobby more than it's a game.
It's not Arkham Horror.
Yeah.
Pay all that. I don't even know, $120, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, you want to rock climb? You can rent the gross shoes at the rock climbing wall place, or you can buy shoes that fit you well, and you're going to be better at rock climbing for having those shoes. And so it's just
as someone who used to rock climb, it will just make your life better.
Yeah, I mean, and it's and for those of not all our viewers can just go, oh, guess I'll spend my money on that. There are other options. Find a play group. You can always, if you have a play group, let's say you're in that middle school situation and somebody's bringing Stasis, pick a ban list. Talk to your friends and say, hey, why don't we say no cards in our decks that are over $1? There is a very popular format on Magic the Gathering Online called Penny Dreadful. And Dave, you might know a little more about this. I don't know if you've heard about this. Nope. Okay. It is a format. It's kind of their own custom leagues, and you can only run, and it operates within seasons. You can only run cards that are a cent or less. And so there are all sorts of really powerful cards that are a cent or less, but there are options. And if you are trying to get into Modern, trying to get into Legacy, and $600 isn't doable, budget it out. You've got birthdays, you got Christmas. Make friends. Go to your local game stores. Get involved in your community. And like Dave mentioned, borrow a deck.
Yeah.
It's when I was playing more regularly, more competitively, like, consistently traveling like every weekend or every other weekend, that was normally a thing. So-and-so's trying to play X deck. They need Y cards. Who has Y cards they're not playing for this weekend? Oh, yeah, no, I got them covered.
Yep.
That's the thing that used to happen fairly frequently. I know that was one way that we used to be able to play Legacy.
Yeah.
Is that we had people that had been playing forever, and they just had access to everything. Oh, you need to borrow a Tabernacle for tonight? Okay. Here's $1,200 worth of cardboard and 1 card. Shuffle it carefully.
Yeah.
Please don't bridge shuffle my cards.
Yeah, be careful if you're borrowing a deck that is the same price as a mid-sized sedan. But the great thing about this game is the community. And if you can get out there and make friends and establish that trust and that camaraderie, there are options. And so anyone who feels frustrated about Magic feeling pay to win. I get that feeling. I remember looking at cards and going like, well, that card's really neat for my green deck, but they want $4 per card. That'd be $16. That's crazy town. Like, I was there, and I was also in middle and high school. Well, I was in high school, and I didn't have a job, and I couldn't really spend that much on Magic. So I've been there, and if this is something you really like, I try to make it work. And there are options if money generation just isn't going to happen. So there's a ton of ways to play Magic. You don't always have to spend the most money.
Or heck, draft.
Yeah, go draft. That's another way to build a collection. So
yeah, it's a good way to build a collection, and everyone's paying the same price.
exactly. And so that's that play limited if you feel like you're a great player and you're being held back by money. There are ways for you to get in there. Make a cube. There you go.
Yep.
So again, we can just keep pitching out. Oh, there's another cheap way to do it. But I think we've covered the topic fairly well. Does anyone have any final thoughts before we roll on to the next thing?
I think you're right. There's a certain cost to playing in certain formats, and there's a certain cost to playing at the top level. But that's similar to the cost of any hobby if you want to play at the top level.
Okay. Before we go on to that, we are gonna have a quick word from our sponsors. So I'm gonna send it over to you, Brett. There you go. Thank you very much, me. So we're going to take a brief moment to thank our sponsors. First up is Cards Custom Build. It is custom props and cosplay accessories and costumes. So cosplay season, it never ends. If you have cons coming up this year, you can do they can handle full costumes, small accessories, and anything in between. If you mention TCG University, you're going to get a 5% discount. Check them out at in the links below. Up next, we have Inked Gaming. If you use our checkout code, TCG University at checkout, you're going to get a discount, and it's also going to help us out. Inked Gaming does all sorts of playmats, mouse pads, and the like. You can do custom playmats. You can do. They've got a whole list of pre-made ones on their site. They can do the full stitch on the side of playmats and mouse pads, which is really nice. I'd recommend that if you have a particular playmat design you like and you want to keep safe. If you get that stitch, it's going to keep the edges from peeling up. It's a great product they make. And mention TCG University at checkout. It's going to get you a discount. It's going to help us out. And finally, we have the TCG University Bookstore. So that's going to be tcguniversity.threadless.com. And we have a deal going until January 24th where you can get free shipping. So there's 2 designs available right now, and that is the TCG logo and #JamesSucks. So if you are thinking about a shirt or you want to represent and you want free shipping, go ahead and act now and go ahead and take advantage of that ending January 24th. Again, that's the TCG University Bookstore, and that's going to be available in the link below. And now, back to the rest of the show. Thank you very much, me. I'm going to keep doing this until you guys start recording the ads because it's fun.
I guess.
So
now I kind of hope the rambling is like kept in there, so you just have egg in your face.
I would like all three of us to record ads and Tam just to pick a random one to insert. That way we don't know who you're going to.
Fair enough.
It's kind of like playing Russian roulette.
Yeah.
but with the ads. Okay. Next topic. We are going to talk about MTGA and what they're doing, both with some pricing and format stuff. So we recently got a state of the beta as of this recording.
State of the beta.
I thought
not beta, state of the game.
Yeah, I was going to say,
game.
I thought we're finally out of the beta.
Sorry, it was such a long time to state of the beta. State of the games. And so they've told us that since Brawl-A-Days was such a rousing success,
yeah,
I like.
they're going
I like your tone.
They're going to continue doing it. So as of today, the release of Theros, if you want to play Brawl on days other than Wednesday, you have to pay 2,000 gems or 10,000 gold.
How often do you have to pay that?
It was about a month and a half. It's seeming. I don't know the end date.
So like half a. Well, I guess that's one of their seasons.
Yeah. I don't know how long this one's going. I don't think it's going to go till the next set.
I just hate that it shoots down my theory that there was some exec in some office making a pitch to their boss that no, it'll be good, and well, this is the way we have to play it.
I want to talk. Well, and in addition to that, I'm pissed. I'm pissed about this. And so historic, we had ranked historic. And ranked historic is not currently available. So if you want to play historic, you can play in like the hidden play queue. I believe, where you'll just like get matched up against another historic deck, or you can pay to enter like the regular challenge events where it's like 3 losses, 7 wins, and there's best of 1 and best of 2. So best of 3. So what you can't do is log on and play Brawl or Historic and get your quests done and get your daily wins done. You have to play Standard or you have to pay money. And it's really frustrating. And I really love Arena. And it's really feeling like Wizards is cranking up the monetization. And so for the Theros bundle, in the past, they've offered $50 for 50 packs. And then they'll throw in a sleeve. This time, there was a $50 for 50 packs bundle, and you got an Ashiok, and you got a special border on Ashiok and an Ashiok sleeve. Or there was a $50 Elspeth bundle with an Elspeth sleeve. It was a Owl Pet. There was
Clash of the Titans. Owl Pet.
The Owl Pet sleeves, an Elspeth card, 2 sealed tokens, and the Mastery Pass.
Did you say Owlspeth?
Owlspeth. Ooh, I'd like to see that secret layer.
For those artists that watch our videos, if you can make an Owlspeth for me, that would be marvelous.
I would very much like an owl secret layer.
Owl-based secret lair and Owlspeth in it. I like that.
Owlspeth in it.
I'm mad. Don't distract me with whimsy. Don't distract me with whimsy. I'm pissed. So, if you want to get all of the Theros-based pre things, it's $100. If you do that, you get an extra special Cerebus pet. That's a lot, Wizards. I bought 2 boxes and I'm going to the pre-release. Again, as we've established, I spend money on this game. I'm kind of a whale. But $100 to get all the arena content, and then you're asking me to pay extra gems or gold into Brawl instead of getting more packs with it. And here's what really pissed me off. So the Mastery Pass is available for gems, but if you want the Elspeth thing, you can only buy that for money. And so normally I just roll my gems, I save up my gems, and I roll them into the Mastery Pass. And I'm like, well, I want the Elspeth sleeves, and I like to play sealed, so I'll do this bundle. I'm not going to buy the Ashiok one. Sure. But then I realized, I'm buying the Mastery Pass with money instead of my gems, so I'm injecting more of my money into their ecosystem, and I can't get the gems I would have spent on that back on something else, and so they're finding ways for me to not even be able to put my gems into other stuff. Now, I could have not bought that bundle and spent my gems on the Mastery Pass. It wasn't the only way to get the Mastery Pass, but it's just feeling really blatant, and like normally I'm like, instead of being excited, now it's like, I wanted the Elspeth cards and to play sealed, but so I don't get to go home and open 50 packs. Because I'm not spending $100 on every set that comes out on Arena, Wizards. I'm not doing that.
In addition to the $100 you're already spending on the box.
Minimum, on one box. And the $30 I'm spending on pre-release.
So would you say that it feels like WotC is looking for players to make a decision between, do you want to play Arena or do you want to play a physical card game?
I feel like it's...
if you are a player who can play only one of the two, so you play a lot of real life games, you don't have a really good computer, or you don't, do the online thing, whatever. You're spending your money. We're Wizards of the Coast. You're going to spend your money one way or another.
I mean, it's pissing me off, and it's feel like they're a company, they have to make money. But there are ways to make money on cosmetics, and it's frustrating. And I bought the bundle that had the cosmetics that I wanted and the sealed tokens that I wanted. I made a choice, but if I could have gotten the Elspeth in 50 packs, I probably would have, because I don't like Ashiok, but I'll use the Elspeth sleeve. So if I'm going to spend this money, I like to get the extra stuff. And here's the other thing, like, we don't know how they're going to put the Nyx lands into the game. Put them in for $5 a pop, Wizards. That's fine. Like, you don't need Nyx lands to play.
And generally people are amenable to pay to look pretty.
No, that's the thing. Is like I wouldn't have felt frustrated if there was a $15 let's say there's a bonus deal on the Mastery Pass and I can choose Elspeth or I can choose my side, Elspeth or Ashiok. It's like there's ways to set this up, but this has felt really greedy. And the Brawl thing, initially saying, we can't have Brawl all the time, there's not enough players to. There's so many players, we can charge you for Brawl every month. And
and that is the one thing that makes me mad, because I was kind of willing to buy the argument that there are not enough Brawl players. We have to see how this plays out. And switching it to, there are enough Brawl players, we're going to charge money.
Or like you have a historic deck that you don't need to keep upgrading, but oh crap, we can't have like playing daily quests and getting gold for that. So let's gate it.
What is the offering now? So they offered last one was Risk the Redeemed, right?
Yeah, it's Talrand, Sky Summoner.
It's Talran now.
Yeah, so he's
my.
he's in historic, which is cool. And like I think he's like if you want to spice up,
he's expensive young pyromancer, but I mean there's a pretty big difference between a 2/2 flying drake and a 1/1 elemental that has no other words on it.
I love.
So do you think they would make enough money if it were just pay to have pretty cards?
Well, here's the deal. They mean it's a company. And so it's never going to be enough. And so I think there would be acceptable numbers. Like, I'm sure there's scientists who figure out how to extract the most money out of me.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, like, and that's
there are absolutely people with
there is a
$70K a month jobs.
But here's the thing, Wizards. So I spent
more than that.
I spent a lot of money on standard stuff. And I'm going to spend an amount on Arena. Normally it was $50 a set. And then maybe if there was this cool extra thing, I'd throw in an extra 20 in between. Or I'd make sure, if I didn't have enough gems for the Mastery Pass, I'd buy some gems. $50 intro pack, and to make sure I have the Mastery Pass. And if you throw in something really cool, I might buy it. I never felt annoyed by that, Wizards. Now I feel pissed off. So I'm spending the same amount of money and I'm pissed off. And you haven't pissed me off enough to stop playing your game. So it's probably a marketing acceptable level of pissed off that I am. But this is not a great way. Maybe it is a great way to run a company. I don't know if you're driving enough people away, but it's just frustrating. I'm just mad, and I don't have a good answer. Like, I would put the money in either way. I'm not going to change the amount of money.
Well, would you pay a monthly fee if it were a monthly fee based?
100%.
That's almost what it feels like, where you have the optional, like, this is the promo for this month, I'm not going to spend it. But I guess here's the other question: so there is currently no queue. No free queue for Brawl, correct?
Unless it's Wednesday.
Unless it's Wednesday.
You can direct challenge someone.
So,
but that's it.
Yeah, that's where the lead in's going to be. So direct challenges are legal. Does there exist a Discord or a Reddit or Brawl where you can say looking for a game?
Yes, I need to pull the details up on that. I'm not going to look at my phone right now. We're going to put it in the description. And here's actually, I want to shift on to something here. So there is a. I don't know if it's just a Discord. There is a service online that will match you with Brawl Games, so you can punch
matchmaking service.
There's a matchmaking service that you can use for free, and it'll get you in Brawl Games, which is really awesome, and I'm super glad. And Wizards actually acknowledged it. They're like, "Hey, Brawl Days was a success. We also see people using this app. We're super excited about that, and we're going to make the friends list better, which the friends list leads to be better." But there were a lot of people saying, "Okay," the general consensus was, hey, nobody's buy Brawladays. We want to show Wizards this won't work. Then maybe they'll give it to us for free. And then people were really mad.
No,
when
they'll just take it away.
No, and that's kind of my thought. But there was a ton of people on Reddit where anyone who's like, yeah, I bought Brawladays, and I love Brawl enough that it was worth my gems. They were all downvoted into oblivion. I bought Brawladays. I wasn't thrilled about it. I think I talked a little bit about it. My idea was I'm a content creator. I didn't want to box myself into only Wednesday videos, so I decided to try it out, and I wanted to test the queue times. And I mean, a part of that was it's also the format I like to play, so I mostly played Brawl. And then people had this big crashback against the players, and they were blaming the players who had paid for Brawladays because it allowed Wizards to be greedy. The players are not the problem, guys. It's Wizards being greedy. You don't blame the person who's held hostage. You blame the hostage taker.
Is it possible that WotC is just getting greedy and charging us additional money for these things? No! It's the players.
It's the players. You let them do this. No! They're an evil company.
If you guys weren't picturing Skinner, it's the players.
No, it is the players. Yeah. It is our fellow players we should be mad at. No, we should all be writing into Wizards and complaining. And not everyone loves Brawl, but Historic is super hard to play. And you should get to come home from work and play the format you like. And Wizards should be able to monetize in a sensible fashion. League of Legends makes a ton of money. No gameplay is gated in League of Legends. I'm fine with having to generate cards. The play-to-win the progression or being able to speed your progression up with money for an online TCG. I'm fine. I'm not saying completely change it, but the blatant cash grabby stuff is frustrating, and that's the thing. I'm not pissed off enough to stop playing your game, Wizards, because I love Magic, but I'm pissed off enough to discourage people from either getting into it or spending money. I don't know if that affects your bottom line enough, or if there's enough people who have hearts at your company to say maybe we could ease back on being such bastards, but I don't know. And I really hate coming on the show and getting mad and yelling about how Wizards sucks.
I mean, and I get it, like, because they don't want to fall into like a loot box trap or anything like that. I mean,
I for a long time, I was always a little skittish with the government's going like, no, I mean, games shouldn't have loot boxes. It's like, I'm generally, it's like people should responsibly spend their money, but
looking at booster packs, it's like, don't rock the boat. Dude.
And so, I mean, but here's the, I used to be on like, don't rock the boat because our game is based on booster packs. But after all this money grubbing crap, it's like, I'm thinking is like, I'm capping my money this season on 50, and I'm annoyed that I don't get to open those packs, but I'm going to do that. But there's someone who who isn't going to decide that's not a smart financial choice and just spend 100 even though they shouldn't. And
to get off on a rant real quick, a lot of the biggest pitfall in a lot of economic studies is that you expect people to be rational in how they make purchasing decisions and how they treat their money. The problem is people aren't rational in how they treat their money and their purchasing decisions. So the thing is, if you install loot boxes and you have these, lottery gotcha kind of mechanics,
or just putting all your content between huge amounts. You want all the Theros stuff, $100 this season instead of 50.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
You're right. And my point is that if your argument is, well, just don't spend that money, the problem is that we're dealing with humans and they don't do that.
And so the more I've seen Wizards do this stuff, I'm kind of like, you know what? I hope they pass legislation. I hope Wizards I hope booster packs become illegal, and I hope Wizards has to scramble and do something because I'm sick of this. Because they've demonstrated they can't be responsible. They've demonstrated they can't be reasonable. So I would prefer a government entity to step in and force them to do something different because I'm sick of this shit.
There already exists legislation on specifically phone app games in places like Japan specifically, where there are specific legislation that exists. It's I know about this because of Brave Frontier a long time ago, where there were certain units that
mobile
kind
games.
of they were global exclusives to start with, but it was kind of teetering on that line against legislation that had already been passed, where it was something to the effect of you can't have two units where you have to you acquire randomly, but if you have both of them, then it puts you in such a good position, or you need to have one random thing that you get randomly by spending money and another thing that you get randomly by spending money in order to get like the best unit in the game or something along those lines. It was pseudo confusing. I understand it way better than I can explain it. To put it that way, it just worked out that one of the crafting materials that you have to get to the best form is also unit, but they just changed it so that unit is gotten via a mission. I think, you know what, that could be a fun thing to look up for next week as far as what the existing legislation is and how our country can potentially mirror it.
So I guess what I'm hearing from you a lot is here that you would like them to democratize how they're distributing where they get their money from instead of targeting specific players that want to play specific things.
That's actually another thing, as I'm remembering for now, specifically the Korean client for Brave Frontier, there is an option that exists that you can just flat out buy whatever units you want. Thus getting away from the whole, you can do 50 pulls and spend a bunch of money on gems, and you might not get whatever the chase unit is that's completely warped the meta. And
the equivalent,
you need that in order to be competitive.
You could buy singles, so to speak, in the game.
Yeah, where they'll just flat out, and the idea is if you're doing all these pulls, that's kind of like gambling. Or as far as Korean law goes, I believe that was the argument they used. Well, you can do this, or you can just buy the units.
I mean, and something to talk about, and I guess kind of my frustration, my culminated frustration is I was always, loot boxes in games can be really predatory, and they are not trying to take it, the game developers are not trying to and then everyone will spend a reasonable amount. It's, some people will spend an unreasonable amount. And I always was kind of like, but Wizards has reasons for booster packs, and we draft, and we have all this stuff. But at this point, I've kind of hit the point where it's like, no, Wizards is exploiting. This is gambling. Wizards is exploiting people who are under the age of 18 because they make and people and who are over. Anyone can have a problem with gambling, but they're exploiting people. This is Wizards exploiting people. I'm sorry, I'm just going to keep yelling.
So,
Dave, please.
yeah,
just gonna keep yelling.
The other thing is they already kind of do that with the wild cards, at least. Like there are multiple different ways that you can get a specific card. You know, in some cases they, you buy a specific pack or something like that that's on their store, like what they did with the first historic thing.
Yeah.
You can still craft all of those with wild cards, based on.
If you buy 6 packs, you are guaranteed to get a
you
gold,
can choose
a rare
whatever
mythic.
rare you want.
If you have the little counter thing, and so
I'm actually like a really strong believer in just monthly fees. Like I think you get away with like Magic Online, but just making it a monthly fee.
That was the thing that I remember.
Then you grind for gems through various things.
I mean,
a side conversation that I had with Eric many years ago was something to the effect of how much would you value an account that gave you access to every card available in Magic? A Moto account, like a God Moto account, essentially. Right. Like if they offered that as a thing, like, hey, if you give us $50 a month, we will give you access to this account that has all of it.
And here's something I want to admit. I like progression. I like the quests. I like building towards something. And for some of it, like,
people do.
It's a game, and some of it,
and people even like gambling elements. I just think you don't put them. You don't put the money aspect into the gambling aspect.
And here's the thing. I like gambling. Once a year, I go to the casino. There's fun to be had in gambling. There's fun to be had in saying I don't have all the pieces, and the more I play, the more pieces I get. And that's why I was, for a long time, so willing to give Wizards the benefit of the doubt, where it's like, I'm going to give you a little bit. Yeah, it's kind of gambling, basically. But Wizards is quickly demonstrating that they are just going to try to squeeze everyone for every single cent that they can squeeze out of them. And I am sick of it already, and there's no way it gets better because it's working and they're making a ton of money. And so if you're annoyed by this, let Wizards know. I wrote to Wizards when they did the crazy double historic wildcard thing. I'm going to write to Wizards again. And if you have a problem with this, I think everyone should write into Wizards and say this is unacceptable and demonstrate to them why it is going to hurt your enjoyment and your continued spending on this game.
Yeah. And that being said, like, by right, tweet at them, like make some social media, make some noise about it.
Make them look bad.
Well, look at it from this perspective too. So the first Brawl Days, people bought into that. They spent the money. They got to play it. They got the wrist. Now we're doing it for Talrand. Like now they're going to have more data to work off of. Now they can look at the Brawl Days and look at whatever they're calling it for this month. They get to look at that and compare and go, well, this one wasn't as popular. Why wasn't it as popular? Do people not like Talrand? Was it, hey, I'm going to support this the first time, and now that you've set the precedent that you're going to keep doing this, now you're just not going to get my money?
I mean, and here's the thing about, like, I'm torn on this because I hate the Brawl Days thing, but when I'm playing Magic, I would much rather be playing Brawl. So if I am going to sit down and play Brawl, like, I want to brew so many Theros Brawl decks. I'm less excited about Standard. So I'm torn, and I have to decide, am I going to give Wizards my money, my 10,000 gold again, which I have, it's sitting in my account, or am I going to try to boycott them? But I feel like, I mean, and if we could...
And across the board, boycott isn't actually necessary.
But it's also, I don't think it's possible, though, because Reddit is a small portion. There's a ton of people who play this game who don't connect. So we could try to muster a boycott, but I don't think it's realistic. And I don't want to sit here and blame people who say, I have limited time, I'm going to pay for Brawl because I want to play Brawl. It's not their fault for doing that. It is Wizards' fault for being greedy.
Look at it like this. Let this Brawl model fail. It's the same thing with when the first Modern Masters came out. Stores couldn't keep it in stock. It was, the Grand Prix that used that as a limited format, capped at 4,400 players, and they got 4,400 players. It was insane. It was madness. It was capped at 4,400, by the way, because that's as many people as Weir can deal with at once, or at least it was at the time. So if you had 4,401, then Weir crashed. It just couldn't deal with it. They had to run functionally 4 concurrent tournaments, but enough on that. The point being was that Modern Masters was crazy popular. And so then they did the next Modern Masters set, and they started doing more and more Masters sets, and they progressively got less popular
they upped
many reasons.
But one of the reasons was price increases. But here's something that kind of bothers me, though, Dave. And maybe I need to buck up. Maybe I don't get to live in a world where I'm mad about this and I pay for the brawl every month and a half. But
see, that's the thing.
But here's the reality. I want to play Magic, and this whole we'll just see if we'll let it fail. if we can't really unite on this.
Yeah,
we can't
letting it fail is not playing.
I don't think. Yeah, that means I don't get to play the game I want to play, and so I don't think that's a realistic thing.
You don't get to play it as far as those queues are concerned. You still have all these different other options where you can do the direct challenge and you can use this other third-party app.
But I don't want to use a third-party app.
Okay.
I want to sit down. They can do it. They're literally gating this to squeeze money out of me. And so I'm tired. I'm going to get 3 games in. And those direct challenge games, I don't get to do my quests or get my weekly wins. Direct challenge don't give you those things.
I did not know that.
They want me playing standard because that's the only way. You have to pay or you have to play standard if you want to do that. And so I could not do this. But we aren't going to get a groundswell of people to protest that. It's just not realistic. So Wizards is just going to keep doing it. And so I can say I'm never going to play for Brawl Days again, and then I don't get to play my favorite format on Arena ever again, or I have to jump through...
Aside from those Wednesdays.
But aside from Wednesdays, or I have to jump through absurd hoops. And this is... It is not my fault. I am not a bad person. Anyone who decides I love Brawl and I want to pay for this isn't a bad person. Wizards is at fault here. And I think what we need to do is... let them know our displeasure and make them look bad. If every time they go check out, if every time on Twitter they go check out our new cool Theros format, we need to go. Why are you letting children gamble, WotC? That seems immoral.
Well,
we need to make them look like crap.
It's a little self-limiting too as well, because there is going to be a proportion of the player base that even if they want to, I can't justify this expense. I don't have it.
Yeah. So some people just don't get to play Brawl or have to use the app. And I don't want to crap on the app. And I'm so happy that people are finding a way to do this. But we shouldn't have to do this. There's not a technical restriction here. This is Wizards saying we can squeeze people's resources out of this game, so they have to inject more of their money into it. We can make our shareholders happy and our stock prices go up. It doesn't matter what's best for the players. It matters what's best for our bottom line.
So I actually have a question, and they can hear me on the mic. Is this maybe because they know they can squeeze it out of online because Paper's not doing well? Are they trying to...
Paper's doing great.
Okay.
I mean, that's so something to think about. Hasbro as a company is not doing great in every sector, but Magic has been continually growing and doing well, and Arena is doing better than anyone expected it to. So every time Hasbro posts losses, they can go, but the TCG branch is doing great.
Well, are they really taking a loss, or are they just not doing as well as previous quarters?
I can't speak for I don't pay every now and then. Every time there's a shareholders meeting, Reddit will make a post. I don't go super into Hasbro stocks. That is not my interest.
I was gonna say it's the return on revenue year over year and see how they're
not to go on the normal rants that I do all along those lines.
Sure,
but it's seeming more and more like when companies are saying that they're when companies have a bad quarter, something along those lines, it may not necessarily mean that they lost money that quarter, but it might more just be along the lines of we didn't do as well as we had expected.
We didn't grow as much as we wanted.
Yeah,
exactly.
We didn't have as
stagnant growth quarter after quarter.
And we were still profitable.
Yeah.
However, we did not grow, and therefore, people are upset. We consider that a failure, despite the fact that we made enough money.
Like City Heroes, for instance, an old MMO game.
NCSoft.
NCSoft.
Yeah.
That game was profitable the entire time. The thing is, it was not growing, and it was not going anywhere, and there was no room to expand.
And here's the deal. Wizards is under pressure. My understanding of the situation is Wizards is under pressure to keep this growth up, and that's hard to do.
That's hard to do.
And so I'm mad here, and I'm yelling. I don't think the people who make the game we love are sitting down saying, let's squeeze the players for all their money. I'm sure there are higher-ups putting pressure on these people. And so I'm really mad, but it's not the designers. It's not Mark Rosewater going, yes, I will steal all of their money. It's probably pressure from Hasbro and the higher-ups to go, we need to do this. Arena needs to be monetized at this rate. Yeah. And so...
Our market research dictates that they will spend this amount of money.
And so what I'm saying is, it's I don't know if maybe I'm mad, maybe I'm just coming off as petulant, but we need to make Wizards understand that this isn't a good business decision. The only way to change it is to make them accept that. And Dave, you're not wrong. If your limit is how they're spending, stop playing the game, because if their numbers go down, they have to rethink that.
Shit, you can keep playing, just don't spend money.
I mean, it is a standard vote with your dollars.
Or if you're going to say, I'm going to play Brawl, and this is how you're going to do it, do something else. I am probably going to pay for the Brawl thing because that is the only way I really want to play Arena. But I'm gonna set a rule on myself of every time I spend money on Brawl and it feels like an unfair monetization method, I'm going to write to Wizards and express my frustration. I'm going to make it known so that they say, yeah, we got 500 letters in this week, and they're all complaining about how I can't play Brawl or Historic, and that they're mad, and they're saying they're going to spend less money. Make the higher-ups have to listen to us. Tweet at them. Get them on social media. Don't be
500 letters all from Brett.
It's fine. Yes. Don't be.
Well, I mean, you have to use a pseudonym for some of them. Is the thing.
Oh yeah,
You
I mean,
can't just-
I'll put a mustache on. I'll have a whole
Do
scenario.
you have any like cool like porn star stage name type aliases?
to adapt the old saying.
If not, why not?
I mean, that's not a bad idea.
Where were you when only 5 people were writing to Wizards making 4 accounts?
Yes. So don't go on and curse Wizards out on Twitter. But no, seriously, ask them questions they don't want to answer, give them publicity they don't want, and put pressure on them to make the game how you want it to be. Or vote with your dollar. There are things you can do. I'm not going to sit here and shame anybody for paying for something on Arena. This is your free time. You get to spend your money and your gems or whatever on how you want. But if you want things to change, try to do something.
Quick aside, I love how the in-game currency that is a stand-in for actual money for virtually every game is gems.
Yeah.
Because during before the pre-show, I was playing.
It's either gems
yeah.
or it's a different kind of money. It's like an in-universe coin system or something like that.
Normally it's like coins and things like that, or the in-game currency that you get when you're free to play. And then when you pony up and spend the money, hey, here's some
that's right.
gems.
Yeah, gems.
Here's free gem for clearing this region. Aside from Dokkan Battle, they use Dragon Stones, and it almost feels like
Those are
that's the gold
gems.
standard for free shit. And hey, you want to be free to play and actually play this game? All right, that's possible.
All right. I'm riled.
You're riled.
I think we should. We've been on this topic a lot. I think I've said.
And the thing is, there's no devil's advocate here. It does feel bad. It feels expensive.
I think what I'm trying to say is probably about as close to it. And I don't.
Yeah.
I honestly, I'm not. I don't care that much about Brawl. Like I'll play it if there's some special event that I deem has enough value to it. Like Talrand is pretty close, but I can't see me playing a Talrand deck
straight
in
up,
Historic.
I'm very much like, if I'm going to play Brawl, I'll play with my friends. I'm
I
not
mean,
paying to play Brawl.
It's Brawl this month. When Pioneer is finally on Arena, maybe it's Pioneer then.
That's all right. You are trying to do
I'm
that
trying not
justification.
I'm trying not to do the thing. I'm trying
when
not.
you sit down, they'll come for you.
They came for the Brawl players.
I'm trying not to do that. The thought crossed
no,
my mind.
it's-
It seemed inappropriate. It's a children's card game. It seemed inappropriate. But seriously, if we let them get away with it now, even if you don't care about Brawl, when something you do care about's there, maybe they're going to do something stupid for Pioneer.
I will say this. If they decide to do the exact same thing for Pioneer under the guise of, look, you're spending this money to expedite the card availability, having all those various sets be programmed and released onto Arena, I would deem that worthwhile. I would say that, yeah, absolutely. You want me to spend you want me to spend $20 a month for some amount of months to get the entirety of the Pioneer card pool on Arena? Fuck yeah.
I'll pay money for cards.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pay money. I don't want to pay money for the right to play with the cards in my collection.
I will subsidize them doing shit faster than anticipated. If that gets them to that point.
There's ways I'm willing to subsidize them. Yeah. I am very frustrating being asked to spend money to play cards in my collection in a format they can just flip a switch and turn on. So that's okay. Again, any final thoughts before we move away from me screaming about Arena? Oof.
Nope.
Okay, Dave. Any final closing thoughts or anything?
Not really.
Okay. Thank you, viewer, for hanging in there on that. I don't know how much you care about this. Obviously, it's close to my heart, and I care about it. So I'm fairly passionate about it. So I am sorry if we got a little... Well, I'm sorry if I shouldn't say we. I got a little intense there. So
don't be too sorry. Shock jocks make a lot of money.
I suppose if you do like me yelling about this, let me know, and I can do a whole show where I just yell about Wizards. Yeah. If this is what you want, do let us know. And if you're sick of it, say, Brett, stop complaining about Brawl, and maybe...
Also, if your job is one of those people who analyze how much money someone's going to spend on a thing, please comment.
Yeah. We'll be nice. We'll be nice.
They're going to be nice. I'm going to link a clip of Bill Hicks stand up pointing out how you're a monster.
Alrighty. Next topic. So this one, Tam actually suggested this topic based on a top 5 I recorded right before we went into this. So this is about the Theros God's devotion, and when you do and don't want your god to be a creature. So in my video, which you can check out on the channel once it's up, I talk about how a couple of my top 5 commanders for this set are some of the gods, and how in some situations it's really nice when they're a big scary creature, but there's also advantages to when you don't have enough devotion and they're just a legendary enchantment. So I suppose a quick example. For example, Heliod is a 5/5 creature for 3 mana, but you need to have devotion 5 to have him be a creature. If your devotion to white is 4 or less, he is just a indestructible legendary enchantment. He still has his abilities that get you counters on creatures and enchantments and give stuff lifelink, but he doesn't get to function as a attacker or a blocker, and he is not a creature for card targeting purposes. So Tam was curious about what kind of situations.
And just a quick explanation: devotion is the number of colored symbols that you have on permanents you control.
Yes, thank you very much, JC. That is a very, very good point. So Heliod, he costs 1 white and 2. He actually brings 1 devotion with him, but you need 4 other white mana symbols among permanents you control to get that devotion up.
And that's the case with all the gods as well, that they add 1 devotion to, with the exception of the multicolored gods, they add 2 technically, but generally they need a higher devotion cost anyway, because
they've been
let me just point out, devotion to make a god come into actual existence on your playboard is kind of a kitschy, cool concept.
No, it's such a great flavor touchdown.
It really is a flavor.
No, so devotion actually existed
it's good. It's good.
It is quick side. It existed in a previous mechanic called Chroma, and that cared about mana symbols in different zones, and that just didn't really land with people. It wasn't a very popular mechanic.
But devotion,
it's reminiscent
on the other hand,
of the third Kamigawa set where they tried to push the how many cards are in your hand, how many cards are in my hand.
Oh, was that the Bushido, or was it?
No. Bushido was a sweet mechanic,
Yeah.
but it was one of those that was referenced on various cards. Like, you can only do this if you have extra more cards in your hand, or if you have more cards than your opponent, or the player with the most like along those lines. It's just a pain in the ass to keep track of, like Chroma was, whereas devotion is just much easier to be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a dude.
But what's really interesting to me is Chroma. Devotion is just reduced Chroma.
Yeah.
Devotion is just Chroma, but less stuff. But it's more popular because they nailed the flavor. So all the gods,
because they restrict it to gods and godlike. I think there's devotion on a couple. Like,
other
big
things
concepts.
do it, but the idea,
like Fanatic of Mogus,
Yeah.
which is referencing a god.
Great Merchant of Asphodel. So like other cards have it, but Theros belief matters, and so they were able to take just the idea that if you are believing in this color and you have things supporting it, you can manifest gods or get more powerful. So it's a slam dunk of a mechanic, and it's one of the reasons I think Theros is so popular. But we could go on and on about that. And honestly, that might be its own topic. But we want to talk about the strategic uses of when your creature isn't an enchantment when it's a god. So, and Dave, so you mentioned the different costs on the gods. They've actually been consistent. So every monocolored god needs
monocolored
5.
are adding in 1.
Two-color gods
too.
need 7. But they
add 2.
They all add 2, and all of the 2-color gods need 7, and all of the monocolor gods need 5.
So specifically, I think the ask is there a strategy behind when you want that devotion to fall, like when you want that god to become a creature, or is it just like as soon as possible?
So I would say in most cases, you probably want it as a creature because then it can attack and it can block, and it's indestructible, so it's fairly hard to kill. Right. However, there are a fair amount of cards, and particularly in Theros Beyond Death, because Theros Beyond Death is a graveyard set, there's a fair amount of exile. Yep. So a card that says exile,
a lot of exile.
Exile target creature. Yep. If Heliod if you have 5 devotion and Heliod is a creature, Heliod can now be targeted. But
forgive me, are they enchantments?
They are enchantments.
They are
enchantment creatures.
And
there's a whole bunch of cards in the upcoming Theros set that deal with not necessarily just creatures, exile enchantment.
Yes. Yep. So if a card says exile target creature enchantment, your devotion doesn't really matter. But a lot of removal, and particularly getting to commander, there'll be a lot of creature exile. Or blue is particularly equipped to at least temporarily deal with creatures. So if you're playing return each creature to its controller's hand, your god has devotion, it's going to get bounced to your hand. And so there are some times where your god won't be as strong, but it's harder to take him out. Legendary enchantments are particularly hard to kill for certain colors. Black and red, for example, have a heck of a time touching them. Now, red struggles with indestructible.
Hard to kill dogs. Or gods, rather.
Yes.
Sorry.
Hard to kill dogs sounds like a. It sounds like a new. It sounds like kind of like an indie rock album, or a like touching movie. That where like the dog absolutely talks.
I don't know.
Am I wrong? Is that Hard to Kill Dogs coming up? Rated PG.
I think it's a good horror werewolf movie.
We went very different routes on that. Dave, what do you think it is?
Are we still on indie bands? Like that
You can
kinda-
have if you're with me on indie
I
bands.
can't riff on that. I'm sorry. It's goodness.
Okay. Anyway.
So devotion
Devotion,
to gods, and that's something that obviously gods are. They're almost always going to be better as a creature, and there are a few instances where you're not going to want them as creatures.
I'd say
Like,
particularly in standard.
Yeah. I was gonna say I'm struggling to think of situations where they're not better as creatures, especially in Theros Beyond Death.
So in standard, generally you're going to want that. Sometimes there is some removal in Theros Beyond Death that will be blanked if they're not. And this is I think particularly for commander players because there's actually. So Commander is all about removal and board wipes. So there are a ton of very
Wraths.
highly played cards. So like destroy doesn't work, but all creatures get -X -X. Those
like
kill.
Sunscour, right? Sunscour is another thing as well. Like I guess Mutilate would be an example of your -X.
Yeah,
-X.
Mutilate, Terminus. All creatures on the bottom of their
And
owner's
there's all
libraries.
kinds of things like Frogify and stuff too.
Yeah, target creature becomes a 1/1 with no abilities. And so, for example, Perforos. The new Perforos is super cool. He is like a modified red and artifact creature only sneak attack. If you're playing a deck built to take advantage of that, Perforos being a 7/7/5 or a 7/6, that's fine. Honestly, in that situation, if I could choose and I can kind of decide where my devotion is going to be and what I'm going to play out, a lot of situations, if I'm in that red deck, I don't want Perforos as a creature. I want to be doing wacky stuff with Perforos, but I don't want my opponents to say, exile target creature, and now I have to replay my commander.
Right.
And so...
And also, I think the devotion mechanic lets them play a little bit in the planeswalker space with gods, in that if they're in the just enchantment zone, but they have abilities on their card that you can activate.
Yeah.
When they're not a creature, it allows them to play in that design space a little bit.
No, I mean, and Black has Black has a ton of exile creatures. If you deck is built around, I really need Heliod to do this thing. I might not. Yeah, you might say, I know my opponent's running that exile spell, or let's say they're running Tragic Slip, so they can give a creature -13 potentially. I'm going. Say again.
Sorry, the good old days.
Good old days, yes. Back
Like,
in Innistrad.
Believe it or not, I'm actually calming down on the sugar and caffeine, so it's only the second one I've had today.
We're kind of simmering down. We're past the me screaming a lot phase, and we're back to talking about how great a game Magic is.
And maybe I don't want my god removed because he keeps making me creatures.
Yeah,
you
or
know,
keeps doing damage.
Or
or
keeps doing damage.
Like
or
the
keeps-
original Heliod.
Or keeps letting me play cards for a turn.
Yeah, no. So
You know.
I mean, it's generally speaking. In most cases, you want your god in a creature, particularly in formats where the removal is a little less consistent.
Yep.
But it's something to think about in Commander, and something a thing to consider against your opponents. Red is going to have a hard time with any enchantment and indestructible creatures. Now, red has a few things that get past indestructible, but not a ton.
Yep.
Black has a little bit of enchantment answers, but has creature exile. Blue is more likely to be able to bounce a creature than bounce an enchantment.
True.
And then you get into green and white, and they can answer with deal with
answer,
enchantments
yeah.
pretty well. But they have to exile them. So destroy target enchantment doesn't work because the gods are all indestructible. So again, you're probably
Even
best.
still, you're limiting because there's a lot of destroy target enchantment. There's less exile.
And we do
target
have some
enchantment.
new cards that say things like pay 1 mana to have all indestructibility and hexproof removed from
Yeah.
opponent's creatures.
So
The
we have Shadow
Spear. Yeah.
So they're giving us tools. So at the very least, yeah. So let's say you're playing a red deck. The red deck's running Shadow Spear because it's a good card. If your god's a creature, they can make your god lose indestructible and kill it. If your god's an enchantment, the red deck's not dealing with it.
If your god's a creature, it can be turned into an elk. Oh wait.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great. I mean, yeah. If you're playing in a format where Oko's still legal.
Listen here.
So I think this is just this is an example why knowing your color pie and what colors can answer what things is going to help you.
Because you will know that if you're playing against green-red, they have more answers that can deal with enchantments. But if you're playing against, particularly like blues, got some balance. But yeah, it's like you were saying.
Yeah, it's helpful to know, and you're going to be a better player for understanding that stuff. So keep tuning in to MTG Study Hall. We are going to go into color pie, color theory, and what the colors can do in later episodes.
And moreover, we're going to keep talking about it when we talk about cards.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's not just, it's fun flavor. It matters. Knowing what colors deal with what permanents well is going to make you a better Magic player. And
Exactly.
so, does anyone have any final thoughts on this one?
No, actually, I think mainly I just like how much of a flavor touchdown it is, and I like how it increases the design elements, and I think it's cool. I think it's cool all the way around.
No, absolutely. It's nice when good flavor can meet good gameplay, and it's the gods are awesome. And I'm so glad we're back in Theros.
Heliod got what he deserved.
No doubt that he did.
He's not great.
He sucks.
And
what do
the
you get when a god crosses a planeswalker?
I just want to point
What
this
he
out.
deserves. I don't know. If
I just want to
want
point this out too. There's a lot of cool art having to deal with Heliod, so it sucks that he's a jerk.
He is isn't he just the Theros equivalent of Zeus?
I mean, yeah,
Basically,
Zeus is kind of
was
an asshole.
also a jerk.
He is an asshole.
Yep.
Which I love. The god.
I'm gonna turn into a bull and fuck that lady.
What?
Wow.
What?
That was the thing, right?
Swan, but maybe a bull too.
Probably a bull too.
I love that the Theros gods. I love that they're like, let's make our gods petty and
Yeah.
Just like the Greek ones.
yeah, like the Greek
Just
ones.
like the Greek
It's
ones.
nailing their source material.
Well, Perforos isn't. I'm assuming Perforos isn't an asshole because Hephaestus wasn't really an asshole.
Perforos gets-
everyone kind of dicked over
Plus
Hephaestus.
the
gets kinda-
green one. What's her
Nylea.
name? Yeah.
Nylea?
She doesn't seem too bad.
Perforos can seem to get pretty pissed. Perforos,
She likes her creatures.
She is whoever the other one was that wasn't Apollo, the other twin. Why am I drawing a blank?
Aphrodite.
No.
Are we talking Theros gods or Greek? Okay,
Greek ones, yeah.
Okay,
because we have Apollo, and Apollo was a twin, and I can't remember who Apollo's twin was.
we're gonna wrap the show up, and we're gonna talk about this in the post show. So, everybody, thanks as always for tuning in. Thanks for bearing with our highs and lows, our goods and bads. Our we love this game, and our wizards were really mad at yous. We appreciate it. While we talk about negative stuff, it's also important to stay positive. There's a sweet new set out. It's out on Arena. It's out in paper. We told you last week to go to a pre-release. This set will be out too late to tell you to go to a pre-release. But if you missed this pre-release, go to next pre-release. Play the game. Make friends.
If
This is
you're
a great
watching
time.
this late, get a time machine. And
Yeah.
then go back to the pre-release. Or go to the next pre-release.
Just go to the next pre-release.
And,
Yeah.
Next
and
pre-release.
if you're watching this late, get some Theros Beyond Death. The cards are cool and they're beautiful, and it's a cool set.
This set looks sweet. So we're gonna
Out
thank.
now on the Arena.
Yeah, out on Arena right now. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, you get to continue on with us into the post show if you're watching live, or you can check out the VOD afterwards. So it's not too late. YouTube viewers, not too late.
Not
Thanks
too
for tuning
late.
in. We appreciate you. And make sure to remember who you are. Have a good one, everybody.